If you remember, 1991 was the year in which India had the big crisis. And, like all of us, everybody reacts well in a crisis. You change the most when you have a crisis on hand. But what was changing at that point in time certainly was technology. And that's where, you could see from the 1990s and you see as you come into the 2000s, the world of Indian banking changed quite dramatically.
I think they had no other option. It was a last minute pull plug, I think, that Manmohan Singh ji was sensible to do it.
No, I think those are brave decisions, but I'm just saying that even before that, there is obviously, like in any economy, there is a duality, right? So this has been my learning when I went to the US last year. I suddenly found that a lot of the things that I was used to in Singapore and India in terms of completing my transactions online were not that simple in the US.
UPI was like designed in India or some Indian guy?
Yeah, so it's a product of an initiative led by the Reserve Bank of India, and so that's I think where the trigger came in, the 1991, which kind of was the balance of payments crisis, which was triggered by the sharp rise in the prices of oil, which was triggered by Saddam Hussein invading Kuwait. We could say that Manmohan Singh was the trigger, but it really, in my mind, the process still hasn't completed. If you wanted to buy a ticket on Indian Airlines, you either went to a travel agent, or you went to
the airport,
or you went to the Indian Airlines office, right? And the ticket was a booklet,
checkbook,
like a booklet, and that ticket had to be carried physically. If you lost that booklet, you couldn't fly.
Yeah,
right.
First, the conversation was happening either to ban AI or to implement it. There was either or in extremes. Now, one good thing, I don't know if you're updated about it, Joe Biden came out and he's put an executive order on AI. It has made it like a capitalistic balance and checks will be there.
But do you think that will create remarkable cinema? It means it'll create, it'll create the run-of-the-mill cinema. And that was really, stupid stuff that was anyway getting created. I think every generation feels that the generation before them was more intellectual. The thing that was the most fascinating were cartoons.
Okay.
So if you take R.K. Lakshman, you take all of these guys, they made a cartoon and they published one cartoon a day. And that one cartoon, they captured the news of the day, the spirit of the time.
Wow.
The thing about North Calcutta was hyper-local, hyper-specialized, very like the best places around the world, where you had, again, people who were highly skilled in what they did. They did a simple on a smaller set of, we worked on smaller menus. The very Bengali, Bangla, the cutlets, these bhajas and stuff. I had a colleague in China who came to Gurgaon and he had Chinese food and he was wondering, what is this? This is not, it's like us going to Greece and having Indian food.
Okay, so welcome to this episode of East India Talks podcast. Today, actually, I got very lucky. I got to interview my uncle, my own chacha, Vikram Kshettry, who works in a very high position in Visa in San Francisco. And so he had come down to Kolkata for Diwali vacations and everything. And so we had a very interesting chat about his growing up. He's born, brought up here, and he studied in St. Xavier's from KG to his graduation. 16 years in one college, one institution. So it was a very interesting talk that we had, and about UPIs and about cryptos and about payments, and how also the relationship of money how the Indian youth sees and how the American youth sees, and how Americans knows their 1 hour value of their worth, but Indians are paid monthly. So that was a very interesting conversation that we had, and also about 91 economic liberalization that Manmohan Singh ji had done. So there are many small things that we've touched upon, and also Kolkata food and his growing up and his friends of school. So please have a watch and tell me, please comment if you liked it or not, and whatever you felt like on every topic, it would, and then please share it with your friends and family. Thank you so much. Let's go watch the episode. So welcome, Chacha. So today I have my uncle, my Chacha, in my podcast today. He lives in San Francisco. But of course, and we're going to talk, like, he's born, brought up in Kolkata, and we're going to speak about growing up in Calcutta and childhood here and other thing, what he's doing and how was his journey. But before that, you just introduce yourself.
Sure. Okay. My name is Vikram Kshettry. As Varun mentioned, I live in the Bay Area, born and brought up in Calcutta. I've lived in India, I've lived in Hong Kong, Singapore, and now in the US. And I'm really find Calcutta is where my roots are. Calcutta is where I come back to, find comfort, kind of find a sense of belonging. Even though I've not lived here directly for the last 20 plus years, but it's something that I really value, the connection back here. And I'm really glad to be talking about it because I think that this is, in a sense, one of the most interesting societies which has seen so much of change, both in my lifetime and before that as well. So it'll be good to have a conversation.
Yeah, welcome. So, but also, what are you doing right now in San Francisco?
So I work for a payment network company. For one of their businesses, I manage partnerships. It's a role in which I work with other technology companies, with fintechs, and the idea being that, as you develop an ecosystem of payments, you have many participants, and we try and bring in as many, collaborators as we can, because clearly, it's a big task, and working with many people gives us more scope, more width, more bandwidth.
So, well, with Visa, but before that, you were with many other ABN AMRO and everything. So
Correct.
Can you just tell about your journey,
Sure. So
college?
Yeah, absolutely. So I studied at St. Xavier's College, both for my schooling, and then I did my BCom there. And then after I finished, I did my chartered accountancy.
KJ till college, you did?
Says St. Xavier's College. So it was, I think, close to 16 years. And then after that, I did my, BCom there as well. Then, so I started my chartered accountancy in 1987. And so the world of 1987 and the world of 2023 are very different places.
Yeah.
1987, there were obviously, limited opportunities. I wanted to be a professional. I wanted to be in finance. And I always, the world of accounts, surprisingly, was something that got me very interested. So I became a chartered accountant. And then I joined a bank. And, I joined a bank in 1990. If you remember, 1991 was the year in which India had the big crisis. And then we had Manmohan Singh, and then we had, P.V. Narasimha Rao and the great opening. And so, fortunately, I could participate in that. I've worked in Kolkata in the start of my career. Then I moved to Mumbai for quite a few years, Bombay at that point in time. And then, you could see that India, was, how should I put it?
Then the new banks were coming in. Citibank came in. And
So the Citibank, the foreign banks are already there. The new banks that came in at that time, which are very interesting, are the HDFC banks, the Kotak banks, and the others. But it's, I think, more than just the institutions itself. It was a mindset which was changing. And, finance always reflects what's happening in the real economy, hopefully. And so you could see that the big, as India wanted to kind of open up and welcome investment, we obviously needed to make those investments. So a part of the whole of the work that we did in banking at that point in time, the large part of it was capital raising. So people wanted to go out and, finance new factories, finance new businesses. This is the pre-internet days. So there were a lot of the internet businesses that you see today. They were not there. But it was, and so, but what was changing at that point in time certainly was technology. And that's where, you could see from the 1990s, and you see as you come into the 2000s, the world of Indian banking changed quite dramatically. And the advent of technology, especially in the sheer power of computing that was brought into the industry, where right from the front teller, people were being served better because the folks who were serving them had access to computers, all the way to the back offices, where when I started my career, we used to spend really long hours trying to reconcile the books of accounts every day. And, jiffy, all that got automated, and all that happened in the back end. So I think that's what the big change that happened. And so those are little steps. And if you look back, all of them add up, and all of them now end up in you being able to do most of your banking transactions using a small screen in the palm of your hand.
yeah.
Which, if you were to talk to somebody who lived in 1990, was so far-fetched. but it's an absolute reality now.
No, which was being done later in the 90s that you talk about technology being, Americans were doing that already before. They replicated it.
So the Americans,
In
in a sense that, well, around the world, whether you take it in the United States or whether you take it in Europe, Western Europe, or you take it in even closer to home, if you went into markets like Hong Kong and Singapore and others, technology was there. But, there are two, I guess there are two portions, or there are two parts to this journey. The first part is what you would call the mainframes. The mainframes were just the sheer computing power of being able to do your back office transactions more efficiently. But what really changed, and where I think India has taken like with mobile phones, you've taken a jump ahead, is wherein the banks in India have adopted mobile technology and web browser technology much faster than what the banks in probably the West have.
Yeah.
So this has been my learning when I went to the US last year. I suddenly found that a lot of the things that I was used to in Singapore and India in terms of completing my transactions online were not that simple in the US. It was, and it still is not. Okay. So what you see with UPI transferring money almost immediately is something that the US still struggles with.
Well,
So it's, yeah.
I'm very less knowledge about finance. So please tell me wherever I'm wrong. UPI was like designed in India or some Indian guy?
Yeah, so it's a product of an initiative led by the Reserve Bank of India. They set up the National Payments Council of India, NPCI, National Payments Corporation, I think. And they kind of linked the banks up, and they kind of created this whole structure of real-time payments, which they call UPI, the Unified Payment Interface.
Okay.
And that has been revolutionary.
So IIT Delhi guy did, no, Bharat Pay was the first one to do it. That
Well, those are different firms which use that technology.
Actually, they were second.
But the National Payment Corporation is owned by the banks,
Reserve.
and they were the ones who kind of developed this technology and rolled it out. So what started off as being a real-time payment or a faster payments network is now having, because it's built up in a manner that there are APIs exposed, and banks and companies can use those APIs to design their own products.
APIs?
APIs are your payment interfaces, are kind of programming interfaces. So these are like software code that the NPCI UPI exposes, that the fintechs can now use to send messages to and from the mainframe to get responses back.
Okay.
So when you want to move money from your bank account to my bank account, it's you instructing through whatever interfacing you use, whether it's Google Pay, whether it's something else, to say that I want to move money. So the message goes to your bank. They authorize the payment that you have money in your account. Then the payment goes to my bank, and then the message goes to my bank. They then say, okay, I have the receipt. The account is active, and they will credit me the funds. And then at the back end, the Reserve Bank of India will manage the settlement.
And these days, that is getting very famous with the vendors and vegetable sellers, that speaking it out. No, as I give 20 rupees, you have received 20 rupees. This is the very thing that they're really liking it.
So that's all about user interface, right?
User friendly.
It's all about making the user interface, making it appropriate for the user.
More interesting and interesting.
No, and I think it gives people comfort. So, it's so funny that in a lot of instances, without the right user interface, any technology, really has a tough time succeeding.
Yeah.
And so we've seen this the world over, that where you have faster payments, where you are enabling, what you would call the smaller businesses or the sole proprietorships or the really mom and pop businesses that you would have to start accepting payments. You really need to make it simple for them. You can't say that you want to dumb it down, because they're not dumb people, they're really intelligent people. Yeah. But you want to make it in a manner that as they think about their business, as the way they transact, the information that they get back from whatever device or whatever tool that they're using, they can process it and then they can complete the transaction.
Yeah. The point is to make their life easier, because before they had to go to the bank and then check or whatever, cash it out.
Exactly. Managing cash.
Put the cash in the bank or something. But it's making it easier, so make it the easiest. If it's making it easier, so it's the best thing is...
No, absolutely. And I think the real test of technology is that, one, is it scalable? So can it be adopted by, millions of people around the country, crores of people around the country quickly? Secondly, is it robust? So is it kind of available 24/7 in all circumstances? Because we all are transacting all times of the day. It's not that we transact between 9 and 5.
True.
Right? And secondly, it has to be simple to understand.
Correct.
So it has to be intuitive.
Correct.
So that the user interface and the way that we interact with the technology is natural to the way that we would do otherwise.
True.
So, me handing you cash is intuitive because you accept the cash, you count the cash, and then if it is complete.
Yeah.
But in the sense that if I'm just transferring money to you electronically or digitally, at that point in time, you must have that same experience where you've received the payment, you've checked the payment, and now you've acknowledged the payment.
True.
Which then completes the payment in my mind.
Correct.
If I just receive the payment, but I'm not able to do the other steps, at that point in time, I'm not able to...
Yeah. It's not a complete payment at that moment. Exactly. And because it actually helps because it happens actually because there are 5-6 customers together and she's just dealing with everyone. And I said, "Mera ho gaya," I show the screenshot or whatever. And then it just says 20 rupees done. So she's like, okay, go. Because she has other people to deal with also together. So in India,
So there's a whole sophistication around checkouts. So this is like in the world of payments that that I work in. Checkout is a unique thing. Right? Today, that's when the rubber hits the road. So today, like if you take your Visa card and you present your Visa card, and the merchant is able to kind of collect the payment using a Visa card, that's really impressive. That's the reason why they pay the fee. Is that because they have a completed sale.
Correct.
Nobody, that's what the real thing is. Accepting money is not their business.
Yeah.
Their business is selling goods and services.
Correct. It should be a side thing, not a big
Correct.
thing. Yeah.
Exactly. So that whole checkout experience, and there are like checkouts which you would be having face to face. So you have checkout when you do e-commerce. You have checkout when you have bill payments. So all of those are very important in the way that, and they're all quite distinct by itself. So face to face, it's all about speed, and it's all about the fact when you're doing e-commerce, you have this concept. You have the problem of abandoned carts. You go in there, you like something, you want to buy it, but the whole technology or the whole process of making a payment is so complicated that you give up. Which is like for a merchant who has invested money, or for us, for an e-commerce site which has invested money in getting you interested to come to their site, and has almost sold the goods. That's extremely frustrating.
True.
So any technology has to complete the checkout fast and efficiently to the satisfaction.
Correct.
And that's why I think some of the work that's being done around user interfaces is extremely important.
Yeah.
Because they help to close that process.
So I wanted to actually go back to that part. You just skipped through it. 91 when economic liberalization happened. I'm 89 born, so I have of course no memory about it. But you were 87. You graduated in 87.
I finished my CA in 1990.
1990. Okay, 3 years CA you did.
Correct.
Okay. So, that was a very changing moment like that. So, okay, so my main point, again, if I'm wrong, please tell me about it. Ki, before 1991, from 47 till 1990, our GDP was only 3% growth because we believed in socialism, everyone equal. There was no capitalism, and we were going down toward downhill.
I think there are different types. There are different economic models that countries adopt, right? And it's no use looking in the rearview mirror and saying what they did was right or wrong, because
I think they had no other option. It was a last minute pull plug. I think that Manmohan Singh ji was sensible to do it. Because
no, I think those are brave decisions. But I'm just saying that even before that, there is obviously like in any economy, there is a duality, right? The one thing is that you want to have people, you want people to grow, progress, right? But the second thing that's very important is that you want to have social justice. So the economy before 1990 focused too heavily on social justice and too little on growth.
Right? True.
And things like social justice manifest themselves in different ways. In some eras, they want social justice means that the government should have a bigger role to play because the government will act in the interest of the many rather than the interest of the one. And they then decide to invest in different, it's all driven through public sector corporations, through the government's own investment plans, which are obviously not going to be as dynamic or as entrepreneurial as we would have liked them to be.
for us as well oiled to.
Exactly. And they are obviously sometimes quite suspect to corruption and things of that nature. So, yeah, that's one part of it. The other part is that you also want entrepreneurship in the economy. You want businesses to grow because the smaller businesses create the maximum amount of employment. And that's a key part of our, of the social justice message is that people should have the 4 Bs. They should have employment. So I think that's where the breakdown happened too, more particularly in the 1970s and 1980s.
Yeah, they didn't do a good job. The idea was good, but they didn't implement it. They had to execute it well enough.
So what they had done in the past caught up with them. The errors that they made in the past caught up with them. So what you had was an economy where there was a large, bump in the population, not enough jobs being created, not enough investments happening. And all of that because the government was not kind of liberalizing fast enough to take it. The economic order around the world was changing. So if you see, when you come down to the 1990s, you're seeing the collapse of the Soviet Union and you're seeing the collapse of the Iron Curtain in Europe. And now you're working towards China coming out of its hibernation in the 1980s, late 1980s, and getting more active. Even though they are a communist country, they are very capitalistic. Economic policies, and that is where the strain started happening, and that's where
I'll just add, even our 2 wars, 65 and 71 wars, did that affect our economy?
Well, they probably have. Any war is disastrous for an economy. It destroys a lot of capital and it destroys, lives, human lives, which are invaluable. But I think that was, by the time it came to the 80s, it was more of internal strife and it was more of the government's moribund policies, which were not really taking off. But then that kind of needed to change. And like all of us, everybody reacts well in a crisis. You change the most when you have a crisis on hand. If you don't have a crisis on hand, then
then
the incentive to change is lesser. And so that's, I think, where the trigger came in, the 1991, which kind of was the balance of payments crisis, which was triggered by the sharp rise in the prices of oil, which was triggered by Saddam Hussein invading Kuwait. And so, all of these kind of things triggered off. You had a pretty tumultuous, political environment at that point in time. You had many governments coming within a short period of time. And then you came into someone like Narasimha Rao as Prime Minister, Manmohan Singh as Finance Minister. Manmohan Singh particularly didn't have a political base, so he could be a complete technocrat and take decisions and he got supported by the political establishment being Prime Minister. So which was a change. But then, again, one change is not enough. It needs to be sustained, lots of changes. It's not, you can't really make the change at the top when it'll immediately flow down.
Yeah.
There are well-established bureaucracies and there are well-established interests which will prevent this change from happening. But there was, the people of India at that point had shown tremendous enthusiasm for this change. And so that's the reason it went ahead. It had its own challenges, right? It didn't have it had very strong unions at that point, which were, for right or wrong reasons, were pushing back on the change. You had the fact that you needed to make massive investments into the economy, and it was very difficult to raise money overseas or within the country to make those investments. As an example, if you take the availability of electricity around the country was so low as compared to the demand and the forecast demand. So unless you made massive changes in that, your telecom infrastructure was not ready. They were, there needed to be these are airports, all kinds of infrastructure need to be ready. And only that change can happen. So, we could say that Manmohan Singh was the trigger, but it really, in my mind, the process still hasn't completed.
Also, but I'm just trying to understand this. There's a big connection between political situations, things happening, and the economy as well. Because when in 70s or something, the mills were shutting in Bombay, the whole capitalism and communism fight was happening, the union that you were saying. So, and even like in actually what, again, you might know better on this, before this, Birlas were here, who made the Birla Mandir and everything. There's so many people from here who went away to Bombay or Gujarat because during the communist era, they were anti-development kind of thing. There were so many union strikes happening. The owners were getting bullied by the laborers and everything. And the whole business shifted from here to the west of India.
Capital has always been mobile.
Yeah.
Capital always moves where it gets returned, right? So if you have environments in which returns are challenged, then capital will move to places where returns are not challenged. So so
Easy
you
to
have
not there.
and then they it's like water. Water always finds its own level. So capital will also flow out of places which make it more difficult to this. I think again it's like it probably is not fair to point fingers at others. If you you just mentioned the trade unions and the others.
You should see that.
Correct, and and trade unions have their role to play in the economy, but at the same, there's a balance of power, and sometimes it shifts to one side, sometimes it shifts to the other side, and we see this play out even now.
But the balance is where everyone makes profit. It works for everyone. It's a win-win situation for everyone if it's a balanced situation.
So that's what I'm saying is that it needs to have the two balancing factors. That you need entrepreneurial, spirits, which kind of invest money, grow businesses, and then you need social justice.
Correct.
So if you have an economy in which you have 2% of the people controlling the entire economy, and the 98% of them are not participating in the money, then that's not a stable situation as well.
Then communism will come up.
And then you have the rise of trade unionism and communism and everything else. So it kind of fluctuates back.
That I know again. Because see now it's so again one line I want to first ask one thing. Ki, you were growing up that time 80s and whatever, and now you see things. So which is like I'm saying, of course we've progressed because years have passed on and all. But I'm saying in a different context. Ki, what was better that time or this time in Kolkata? In economy, in other places, other ways.
I would love to be young in an economy like this than an economy that that we came in out. Because I think today, so if you take people like yourself in the room, the creator economy that as we talk about today, that didn't exist at that point in time. The only part of creator economy was that you could write articles and hope to get them published in a magazine or newspaper. Or you could, if you like join the mainstream media. Correct. And then you made movies or something else. But today the opportunities around that are so much more. Similarly, I think even if you get into the technology part of it, the number of opportunities that you have with fintechs and other technology startups, they have very interesting business models. With none of that existed today. There, unless you had capital, you couldn't get a business started. Now there's obviously access to capital, which is more democratic, more available, which kind of triggers off a lot more things. But having said that, I think in the time that I came formally into the workforce, obviously there were advantages that there was lots of change happening, and there was in some manner a shortage of talent, and you got recognized and you got pulled up faster, which probably might be a little bit less
meritocracy was there, basically.
Well, it was that there was in the initial part of growth. Now that a lot of the industries have matured, the growth paths have kind of flattened out.
I think it's a wave. I think that time we needed to continue more engineers, doctors, CAs. I think the country was growing. I think that.
I don't think any country needs more CAs, but yeah.
By now.
Yeah.
But I think like the Silicon Valley, the IT wave, now people are being fired from the Silicon Valley, and people were being hired 20 years like in hordes.
Yeah, but I think that's all.
I think the work is done. The code is done.
Hiring and firing is cyclical. That will keep on happening. In any economy, any point in time, the
same sector is doing it, in hordes and then firing. I think the work was done. The coding was done 20 years, and now they don't need it. I think.
Yeah, but the coding is never done. I think it keeps on changing. But coming back to your question, where would I rather be?
Yeah.
I think today's economy is really if you're entrepreneurial and skillful, it's the place to be. The economy of that point in time was more about you had to be smart, street smart. And you had to make your way around. Yeah. And there was enough opportunity to do that. Yeah. But it was, you sometimes miss those, those go-go days of those, the early 90s where, I don't know, you probably won't remember this, but, the capital markets, the stock markets at that point in time went through so many boom and bust cycles, Harshad Mehta, Harshad Mehta, all of that happened. And we were all kind of in that phase in the finance world. And you have to have the stomach for that.
True.
Because it's quite, it quite goes fast
True.
up and down.
So wait, because I had one more podcast with my friends. So we were talking about we are of course very young, but we were of course we know about history and all. We were talking about it. So one of my friends had a very interesting point of view that in 70s the most intellectual people who were trying to join the Red movement, the Naxalite movement, and all. So they were the most intellectuals, and they were killed kind of in Congress. So I think this whole society, one generation of intellectuals were kind of moved. And after that, what happened? The best, also what he said, ki the people who were getting educated here, they were so highly valued and regarded because in their own family or their own mind, because they had really done the work. They had grinded them through graduation and everything, but there were no job opportunities. There was nothing in Kolkata. So the best minds went to America, went to other places in the world. So there was so many Bengalis are the best Bengali minds are not here. Everyone is.
No, I wouldn't say that, but there were people who found, there was enough people who found opportunity. I don't say that the best minds are here or there. Definition, the best is, you can't really rank talent. A lot of that is all dependent upon circumstances and opportunities and things of that nature. But I'm just saying that, yes, there was serious amount of entrepreneurial and technologically savvy people who decided to move out of, places because like with capitalism, talent also flows out, right?
Yeah, true.
Yeah, and there's a thirst for talent everywhere.
Yeah.
Even now with all the, you just mentioned firings and everything else, but you have now you must be all reading about AI and generative AI and stuff, and that's sucking up so much of talent from all over the world, and I think that's going to make even markets, countries like India super productive in the future.
Yeah. But in some things, it should not be used in everything. We are a little against AI also as artists, because getting to script writing and all, because we have our own life experience to give to
So
audience.
that's quite interesting, right? So when I was coming on, there was that fight was against
The strikes
internet.
that we.
Yeah, against internet. Banks would not allow computers on, they had challenges and they had, and there's the whole thing was that this will,
People will lose jobs.
people will lose jobs and all. But the fact is that today there are more people in banking than there were in 1990.
That's true.
by a factor of 8, 9, 10 times more people in banking and financial services in any field that you say, which at that point was predicted where jobs will be killed.
Yeah.
I think we've shown a remarkable ability to adapt and adopt technology into our lives. So what what you're talking about, the fact that you're talking about that AI does not offer you protection around intellectual property that you create, and you're seeing a dilution in those rights because your intellectual, whatever
It's taking data from different scripts from Tarantino, Fincher, and it's just giving you one output. It's like that kind of.
But do you think that will create remarkable cinema? I mean, they'll create it'll create the run of the mill cinema. And that was really, stupid stuff that was anyway getting created. You take any of our movies from 1970s before AI as well, if you see those scripts, they were all a lot of, they were not very remarkable. So you have artists, today, people who copy other artists and they make those, copies of other people's art and they still sell.
Correct.
Because not everybody has an eye for art as well. Right?
To be fair enough, when these strikes were happening, there was actually one thing that I'm happy about. See, the conversation was happening either to ban AI or to implement it. There was either or in extremes. Now, one good thing, I don't know if you're updated about it, Joe Biden came out and he's put an executive order on AI. It has made it like a capitalist thing, balance and checks will be there. Like any food product comes out, Lay's or something, there's a FDA that checks it and whatever. So AI will be checked because so that it doesn't, people don't lose jobs. And certain things, once this balance and checks are done, then certain companies can use it. I think that's a good step that American government is taking because
I'm for that.
Yeah.
I'm for that. But I think the real fight will be in the marketplace. The marketplace will determine what will means the marketplace does not reward lazy people, right? So if you're taking the lazy way out of just gathering data from others and mishmashing it and presenting it, that will get exposed fairly quickly, in my opinion. So I think yes, there are some checks and balances certainly required, but I think that like with that technology, like people are afraid about the internet now. think about it, 1980s and 1990s, if you wanted to fly in India, you had Indian Airlines, right? If you wanted to buy a ticket on Indian Airlines, you either went to a travel agent or you went
To the airport.
or you went to the Indian Airlines office, right? And
With that
the
big
ticket
ticket.
was a booklet,
Checkbook kind of.
like a booklet, and that ticket had to be carried physically. If you lost that booklet, you couldn't fly,
Yeah.
right? And then that whole check-in process, checkout process at the airport was so this thing. There'll be one person tearing one page, stamping, and this, and so, and then you kind of advance. And now again, none of those jobs which are there in the airlines have been killed. They're probably now 50 times more people in working for airlines than they ever did at that point in time. We all have more choice, and we all are making. Internet has been crazy efficient in all our travel plans. You can go now and book a ticket and fly in the next 2 hours. And
No, what my point is, see, and again, what this way, we have a film group that this conversation keeps happening. See, what my point is, even like COVID happened, we were so lucky that there was a video call facility we had designed by then. I mean to say, as a thing, we should put a full stop. As a technology, I've seen many robotic movie, iRobot and all also, whatever, I Am Legend, whatever. So the point is ki, this iPhone video call, this is max peak. Matlab, we should not let technology take over than our control. Matlab, that's the thin line that is.
no, I would challenge that. I think it's not in our interest to put any constraints of technology. Why should we? Why should we put any constraints on technology? If I can do my work with just a phone,
Yeah.
and I don't need to kind of go to the office, or I don't need to, means, can you imagine how tough it would have been to be a small business owner in the 1980s? Right? If you wanted to grow your business as in the 1980s and you were starting off a new business, you didn't have a assistant, you didn't have anything else. Calling up people to make your first sale, visiting them in person means catching a plane or a train, and then being disconnected from the rest of your business for the whole week because you have to go across to even to Bombay to complete a sale. Think of how disruptive and how challenging that
And
would have
carrying
been.
cash.
And carrying cash and carrying in banking and stuff. So I think it's a it's a game changer. What has happened?
No, but why I was saying it because Steve Wozniak and all he's called the godfather of AI and empathy. All these guys are also disregarding it. We should not let it have a balance in check kind of a thing.
The checks and balances are certainly important. Protecting intellectual property rights are certainly important. Ethics in business, completely in favor of that.
Yeah.
But not at the cost of limiting the progress.
Of course. So
we should continue with that. But we have to, and that's as I said, again, the whole balance about social justice, being fair to all the producers, all the creators, and the entrepreneurial spirits, so that people who have a new business model can.
Because I'll tell you, there are two extremes. One is very good thing we discussed in our last podcast also, that it is going to help. Maybe they're trying 6 months before if cancer is detected in you, AI. That's a good thing if cancer is detected. And the second thing with AI, any medium, internet can be used in a good way or bad way, right? Smartphones, it can be used in a good way or bad way. The worst thing, the bad thing of this is actors. Okay, the second leads or the secondary actors or tertiary actors in America, LA. So they, the main leader there, in behind it is a party scene, the people roaming around or something, right? The people. So what they're planning is once for all this, do a body scan of them with the whole AI thing, and they will never be called for work. They can change the costume on their body and they can put it in some other party and the same face is like smiling and. Are you getting it? Once you
I completely get it.
Yeah, and they'll never get a job because you have given your rights, and once you've paid a hefty amount for your lifetime, and not that hefty also. But now, okay, you are without working, you'll be seeing many.
Those are kind of like when people moved away from horse carriages to cars. There must have been a lot of people who were skilled in servicing horse carriages who lost their jobs.
Yeah.
They all moved to some other role. So it's very interesting. If you take the history of Hermes, which is such an iconic brand today, the origin of Hermes is in designing leather for carriages, right? That's where they were designing. So, they were very fine craftsmen.
Like horse carriages
for interiors and stuff. And so they kind of came up there. So I digress there. But I'm just saying that, yes, there are going to be some people like with everything else, who had very cushy jobs issuing paper tickets and airlines. Suddenly those jobs did not exist, but take it.
See.
I think, we'll discover other work for them. They'll probably be more effective.
Okay.
We have a 3% unemployment rate in the US. I don't think these actors are we shouldn't cry too much for them.
Okay.
But I was just think about the impact something like AI could have is that if it could do much better translation. So somebody sitting in a well qualified doctor in, let us say, Assam,
True.
in Assam, who doesn't have proper English language skills but can now do work with an agency in the US because they don't really need to have those fantastic English language skills. They can just be because they have the technology, they have access to they have the brain, they have the access to technology, and there's technology which can help them communicate better. I think it's a winner.
True.
It's a winner. So the world hasn't realized what the impact is going to be. But a lot of this is still speculative. The real business cases are just about emerging. They're not even. I don't think it's like a lot of people talk about blockchain. You have a lot of crypto assets and everything else.
What is the point? Crypto bad?
No, I think crypto has there's always a search for new technology which makes things safer. I think that was the whole part about crypto. It was a no trust environment. I don't trust the government to manage my money. I don't trust the banks to manage my money. I want to hold my assets, my financial assets, in a form that is not under control of anyone else, right? That was the whole thinking. But a no trust means a lot of friction, and which is the challenge. So you have to give one and take. So you can trust or put all your money in Bitcoin, but it's not very easy sometimes to move Bitcoin very fast. It's not very easy to use Bitcoin for buying some soap.
Okay.
So those are the challenges that you have.
It's long investment side.
Yeah, but it's something which will develop, and you have things like central bank digital currencies, and you have other assets that are getting created, which could someday be revolutionary. But you can't stop technology, so that technology will keep on moving ahead. It'll probably find the right application, the right environment in which the application is delivered, which will help it succeed.
Okay. I was listening to one of the podcasts. I forgot who it was speaking, but he had a very valid point. You can just tell me about it. He said, I will trust a bank more because if I'm having mutual funds where I'm putting my hard cash, my value of money I'm putting in somewhere, I will trust that more of a return than crypto where I'm actually not putting any value to it. I'm just trading or I'm just doing on the air in the cloud or something.
So not everybody means
reliable.
I would say that's one point of view. If you talk about the crypto enthusiasts,
as an investment, long-term investment in crypto.
So their point is that today what drives the value of investment, and there's a lot of references to crypto as being equivalent to gold. What drives the value of that investment in gold is scarcity. So similarly, they say that some of the crypto assets have a scarcity value. There's a limited amount of Bitcoin which can be generated. I'm not a big believer in crypto, but I still recognize the value that there is.
Okay.
And it's like always, the marketplace will determine whether it's a hit or a flop.
Dubai is becoming a big hotspot of crypto.
Well, there are many like that, and I think there is in the West, especially in the US and Western Europe, there's a lot of skepticism on regulations, because one thing that is not offered by crypto is that you can't really monitor from a money laundering perspective, and those are who is the actual owner of the money that is moving, which is a challenge for all regulators. So some regulators have different points of view, and the capital just flows to them. The talent just flows to them.
Yeah. So one thing, just a couple of last questions. One thing I don't really understand this, and because a lot of young Indians will be watching this and all. Of course, you are in America and you've seen the banking world thing and the entire world completely, actually, honestly. And I'm trying to say that what's the difference you find about the youth, their relationship with money over there and the relationship with money that people have here. And to add to that, one nuance is just speak about that where people are over there charge hourly basis. They know their hourly rates. There's a Kunal Shah, the owner of Credit, he was speaking about it. Indians don't know their hourly rates. They are paid on a monthly basis. They don't calculate. But if they knew the value, they will save more time. And they knew, okay, I have this hourly basis. I'll do a 1 hour of waiting job, or I'll do a whatever for 1 hour and I'm gonna make a dog walk or something. But they know the hourly rates and they can make it. But in India, the time of they're losing time just by wasting time sitting because of the monthly structure in their mind. What do you have to say about that?
I think the first question that you ask is what is the relationship to money
Of their
people,
yeah.
that people have in there? I think the relationship to money has, there are. I think as you progress in life, your first relationship to money is transactional, right? Because the thing is that you want to earn because you want to spend. You want to, and when you're starting off your career, your business, your your entrepreneurial venture as a creator, clearly you're more motivated by creating a brand for yourself, a name for yourself, rising up in the organization where you are in your community. So that's the bigger motivator.
And bigger motive is family, keeping family happy, making money.
That's the first part. The next part of it becomes that where you will then move on to becoming that I want to create something for the future, for my future, right? Because I know that I have a finite life or working life, and then after that I want to enjoy, or I want to create assets that my successors can enjoy, things of that nature. So the relationship to money is fairly transient. It kind of changes over your life. With the youth, it remains the same. Now, the second point that you made is that there is a greater awareness of where you can make money, right?
And the value of your time as a youth, your value of your daily time. Pretty
correct. And so, irrespective of how you get paid, whether you get paid by the hour or the month or the year, all of us are doing that maths on our own.
We don't do that maths. Indian youth doesn't know that they don't do their math. That's the problem.
No, maybe I'm not disputing that. Yeah. But all I'm saying is that at that point in time, if you know the value of your time, if you know the value of your money, if you have more opportunities to go out, and which is again, if you take the economy of the early 90s to the economy today, there are more opportunities for creators. There are more opportunities for people to do what you would say in the informal gig economy than what you would do now. Now, in India, particularly, I think the organized sector where people get monthly wages and stuff is still a fairly small percentage of the overall population.
Really?
Yeah. So people who work in the formal sector, people who work in the formal sector are probably around 10-15% of the total workforce.
In India.
The vast number of people who work in India are all working on either in the informal sector, and there it's hand to mouth, day to day, everything is this thing. So they have a very good idea what their money and time is worth.
But not an hourly thing. They know what day is. Yeah, but they know. Actually, I was telling you about the urban youth.
Yeah, the urban youth and stuff, they who are in the formal sector. Yeah. But you would see that the entrepreneurial economy is not in the organized sector. The entrepreneurial economy, which is the one which is like if you take the percentage of manufacturing to services in an economy. So if you take the typical 3 big buckets of an economy, you have agriculture, you have manufacturing, and then you have services. Agriculture is probably shrinking over a period of time in terms of the percentage of GDP that is represented by agriculture. Manufacturing peaked probably in the 60s and 70s. And now the entire growth, both in employment and in GDP, is coming from services.
Services
as in, any kind of non-manufacturing where there's not a good being...
Like startups and all.
No, but any other service, like you're a Swiggy driver delivering food to you. Okay. He's not manufacturing the food. He's creating a service for himself. That's what's adding
he's the owner of his own thing. He's a delivery partner.
Correct. So, so in that sense, that part of the economy is growing. And that's where the real focus of everybody has to be. Now, those are the people who are probably the worst served by our economy.
Yeah, not well taken care of.
Not well taken care of. Because they don't get access to healthcare, they don't get access to
the
related
pension.
Pension, everybody has to create their own.
Now
there's guarantee. Pension.
Then just one last question that I want to include these things. Tell me again if I'm wrong about it, but I heard that after Jio, that network came in, India's become the place with the cheapest mobile network kind of access by far, by access. And people get just access in like such a cheap base than other countries, right?
Yeah.
And so what is the new focus that a lot of Americans are looking coming towards India, because Netflix, Amazon, and many other companies are also planning on making investments here and everything. And wanted to add on that. One thing is about what do you think about moonlighting as a general thing? And first, let's go to Geo, the network thing, and India as a big market opening up.
So again, this is where you see the entrepreneurial spirits coming in. I think that the Reliance Group kind of had the focus, had the access to capital,
Vision kind of.
had the they managed the environment very well. They launched a very successful service. It scaled up, and now it's and clearly they could have taken two paths. One was to launch a premium service. One is to go right down and make it more generally available and thing. They've taken the other route as well, and there's a pot of gold in that. Now, what you're talking about next is the second order effects when you have good connectivity in economy. At that point in time, there are services being layered on top of that good economy, of that good connectivity. And those are the services as they get layered on. So whether they become like what you talked about, Netflix and the others sourcing content from India, which is, in some senses has a global audience, has good quality, and everything else. Plus it's, it's reasonable to produce. Gets done on time. It gets delivered on time. It has a...
It's a VOD, video on demand. First, we had to go at the 9 o'clock. The show will come. The whole family has to sit at 9 o'clock. Now you can watch it when...
Correct. So that's what I'm saying is that, when you have a strong infrastructure of a good, Wi-Fi or internet connectivity, you're layering on services on top, creating opportunities for the workforce, which is a win-win thing.
Yeah.
The challenge then becomes is that, this has to be, we have to be as self-consuming. Means a country the size of India will at some point be one of the major consumers in the world, right?
For everything.
For different thing, right? Because for everything.
For population.
Population-wise, and as, even with a slight increase in prosperity, and especially in the rural areas, you will see the consumption economy coming in. That's where the challenge then becomes, is that, all of that needs to be kind of, people will have a lot more aspirations. They see everything on their screen, and then, that creates a bit of a divide for them. Their daily lives versus what they see on the screen, then creates a life. I'm really not kind of qualified to talk about that. I've been a very boring finance person, so that's really not my...
Yeah, no, let's see. What is the undercurrent going on in America? What are they thinking about Indians? And
so in America...
And NRI especially, what is the talk there?
No, but let's talk about America. I think in America, I don't know, you probably have to see the impact that TikTok's having in the US. Despite the fact that it's a Chinese app, nobody in the US has the guts to ban it. And it is so huge, and brands are getting created on that. All types of businesses are being built on that. TikTok music, TikTok books, everything. They're creating new markets where nothing existed.
Yeah.
And I was hearing a podcast today where they say that one of the most popular summer courses this year was a YouTube creator course. So there were kids who did not go to summer camp but went to a YouTube camp where they went for 3 weeks just to create, and they were taught film editing, and they were taught cameras, and they were and everything is being done through a phone, right? So there's no equipment like this, right? Yeah. So they're creating it, and that's the creator economy.
Okay.
So so I think definitely in the US, it's the jobs that people want to do are more in services and creative economy than in old-fashioned manufacturing.
The industrial and medicinal use of cannabis, basically in 27 states now it's legal from 50 states. So they're using it really well. California is actually using it in a very good ways for cancer and other because to make jute, hemp things, hemp bricks, whatever. So I think and it's getting legal slowly in other states also of America. But and Thailand has become completely legal now just recently. So what do you think about this? Because it is a plant that is from India actually. It has very roots from India and China to Himalayas, of course. So what do you think about that economic growth? Because what I heard recently, after Pakistan was going so badly down in the economy, they have decided to use industrial cannabis for their work and whatever. So what do you have to say about this?
I have no idea. Seriously, I have no idea.
Okay. Because
I barely interact with that.
Yeah. So even like what about Thailand? There was only tourism and agriculture, mostly Thailand. So economically, they were going very badly down.
Yeah.
So they opened that gate, so it kind of is flourishing.
I'm sure there is a market for everything, but it's clearly, you mentioned checks and balances earlier, so there have to be checks and balances.
Yeah.
And it's no use penalizing people for something which is fairly innocent, but at the same time, there are obviously downsides to this.
Yeah.
I have no point in this.
Okay. And this last one thing, just wanted to ask you about that thing. When you're schooling also, just little bit about that. Your kind of people to find the friends you had that time. You're still friends. You're still they're school friends or college friends?
School friends.
So you just speak about them for us.
No, I think that and maybe this is just like a older person talking, but you probably make better friends without digital screens. So that's a challenge. But then I've known that people are very strong, are able to maintain strong friendships with digital screens.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a question of how you transit from one to the other.
Yeah.
But it's like with anything else in life, it's all about shared experiences.
Yeah.
So the longer you stay rooted in a place and then you have a chance to interact with people for a longer period of time, those shared experiences build up bonds, and that translates into So that's why you see in very successful companies also have a culture where people stick on for a fairly long period of time, and then they, it's not transactional. It then becomes more relationship driven, and so if you see Steve Jobs' original team for a very large part stayed with him all through Apple, and for even after he went with Tim Cook, they were all there. They're the team which was there in probably the time when Steve Jobs came back the second time to. When before he launched iPhone, and they're still around. It's now a $2 trillion, $2.5 trillion.
But he had Pixar also. The animation.
That was his private investment. But I'm just saying that it's, that's what you're talking about, friendships and bonds and this thing. I think that friendships probably are stronger when there are no screens, but they probably sustain better with screens.
So and also this, what was I just want to understand one thing. What was the like the undercurrent goes on in every time period? Like people were more intellectual that time, like conversations in Kolkata, or because there was all this Satyajit Ray and everything that was more, it's gone down. What we believe is that the talks have gone down, intellectual, because see, the infrastructure is there, the city is huge, but it's kind of,
I think every generation feels that the generation before them was more intellectual, but then we all go back to everybody thinks that the next generation is
future.
Yeah, and I don't think that's true, because today the creator economy, or even the creative spirits that you see even in a short reels or a TikTok, means people are really applying their minds.
True.
What Satyajit Ray, I mean, there's no way to compare one to the other. But then he had his own skill in a...
And very less technology that time.
He had a 3-hour format with this thing in a black and white screen. If you see Opushansha or something, it is unbelievable.
True.
And then you see somebody who does a really neat 3-second video or a short video, and they still get the message across. So and what is intellectualism? Intellectualism is the power of the brain and the mind and how it is expressed.
We just want to go to time machine.
The thing that's changed when I was growing up, the thing that was the most fascinating were cartoons.
Okay.
So if you take R.K. Lakshman, you take all of these guys, they made a cartoon and they published one cartoon a day. And that one cartoon, they captured the news of the day, the spirit of the time, which I think is so difficult, but they did it.
Yeah.
And I still have a book of R.K. Lakshman cartoons, and there are enough, cartoonists. Bal Thackeray was a cartoonist and others. And that's, I think, a dying art. They come more of memes and others, as opposed to that hard-hitting cartoon which caught your attention.
Okay, so this last thing, because something came up in my mind actually, because see, you grew up in North Calcutta, right? I shot my short film in North Calcutta. I love that. Because see, I actually, moved out, so I just had 4-5 years to experience it, but I had glimpses and memories, actually going and whatever. I coming from Jamshedpur and everything. But some special, if you can just share with everyone the special food places of Kolkata that you liked.
Oh yeah, of course.
Please.
It's
still, is it exist or not? If you can share those places.
Well, I don't know. I've not been to that area in a bit, but I think the thing about North Calcutta was hyper local, hyper specialized, very like the best places around the world, where you had again people who were highly skilled in what they did. They did a simple on a smaller set of, we worked on smaller menus, but they did them with things. So, whether it be, your sandesh, whether it be your, the regular food.
Nakul de Chandra de.
Yeah, Nakul yeah. So all of those, I think, so clearly my memories too in Calcutta, growing up were highly food related as well, because there was so much sweet.
You were a foodie as a child?
Yeah, absolutely. You can't grow up in North Calcutta not. But I think it was a very special period in that sense, because it was so cheap.
Yeah.
It was so cheap, and it was fortunate to have grown. And then because you had not other distractions, you could actually,
it was a
plan day around food. Yeah,
food was an event every time.
correct.
And Niranjan Adar, the cutlets and everything.
Everything, yes.
Yeah, and then Nizams. And some places, say a few places there.
No, absolutely. So the iconic places was definitely for me what I remember. The sweets in North Calcutta's, all over the places. Then you had, what was really special was the very Bengali, Bangla, the cutlets, these
Bhajas
and stuff. And then you had a whole range of things.
Chinese, Tangra uses Tangra.
Tangra, but even in Park Street in that time, the Chinese food was very... Now again, having traveled to China a bit, people in China don't consider...
Desi Chinese, Indian Chinese.
I had a colleague in China who came to Gurgaon, and he had Chinese food, and he was wondering, what is this? This is not... It's like us going to Greece and having Indian food. You're like, what the hell have we done to our dishes?
Yeah.
So let's call it a day.
Take it. And this last thing, we just say, just to the main camera, just say like, share and subscribe.
Please like, share and subscribe to East India Talks.